Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Chris Enriquez. Welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. Thank you for joining me. Don't mind me, it's a little bit of a mess in here. I'm just trying to fix things up a little bit. I'm very excited about tonight's episode. Growing up in the New York hardcore scene, I got to see a lot of really cool bands in the 90s. A lot of those bands were from Long Island, where I was from. Some of them were bands like Silent Majority and Mind Over Matter, to name a few. And then Millhouse was another band that I enjoyed checking out back in the day. And that's when I first came to know my guest tonight as a local musician that I had seen playing bass in Millhouse. And later on, she ended up in Indecision and Most Precious Blood, at which point I was playing in a band called On the Might of Princes, and we did some shows and festivals alongside that band, who were great and still amazing to this day. Seen a lot of reunion shows, and it's just still vital. The message of all the bands that she's been in and the energy that they still put out on stage is unbelievable. And she also was in a band called Wage of Sin, and we'll talk about that. In addition to a new company, I don't want to butcher the name, so I'm going to let her talk about that. But they do custom dog collars, which is super, super cool. So her name is Rachel Rosen. Also, let's mention that she was on the legendary Crucial Chaos radio show back in the day as well. And that was an amazing radio station on NYU for anybody here that was fortunate enough to be around for that. There would be bands performing and a lot of cool underground music, punk and hardcore and noise shit that you wouldn't hear anywhere else on the radio. So yeah, we're going to talk to her about a lot of cool stuff. And without further ado, it looks like she's ready to join. So we're going to get Rachel Rosen on the screen here. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments or in the question mark box in the bottom of the screen, and I'll do my best to get to those. Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I've done like over 150 of these, and I'm testing out. It took me 150 episodes to figure this out, but I'm testing out these headphones right now, and they sound great. So.
Instagram Live thing. So I was all worried about like signing in and getting the right spot to film from. So. No
worries. You already look and sound better than many of our guests have with their weak Wi-Fi signal. If you ever notice me looking this way, I have a cheat sheet. So
okay.
It's not that I'm not paying attention to you. So tell me, have you been managing to get through this insane year?
Well, the weird thing for me is that it hasn't been that different for me aside from being busier than usual because I work in the lab at a hospital. So I didn't like that continued through everything. We had to keep working. And with my second business making dog collars and leashes, it got busier than ever because all these people were adopting dogs and cats, which was awesome. But yeah, so honestly, like, for me, aside from me missing my family a ton because I haven't seen them since January, it's just sort of been like I've been fortunate that it's been somewhat of a normal year for me job-wise.
Yeah, because I wanted to talk about the company that you have. I didn't want to butcher the name. What's the name of the company again?
It's just called Caninus Collars after the dog band that we had in the early 2000s.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that it was a band first. That's amazing.
Yeah, a grindcore band with our Justin, the other guitar player, him and my pit bulls at the time were the singers.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll get into that because I want to go through your full history. Someone just commented that my voice is distorted on the screen, and I'm wondering if it's these. So I think just give me a second. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hopefully this is better. Yeah, and like you own and run your own company, probably a lot of online sales. That's how you're doing it. So I guess during this pandemic, you've been able to still kind of, business as usual, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. That's why I feel like some guilt almost because, I see so many people struggling, but for me, like just so little change. It's just, I have to wear a mask everywhere at work, but, it just, for the most part, aside from, the hospital got like a little slow for a little while when people were too afraid to come and get surgeries and stuff. But then all of a sudden it picked back up, and then we got like really busy. And now numbers are increasing again, so it's slowing back down a little bit. But yeah, I haven't, I've been at work every day that I'm supposed to be.
That's good. That's good. That's good. It's just. And where are you? You're in the West Coast too, right?
Yes, I am in Orange, California now.
Wow, that's such a departure. And I know, like you said, like the numbers are kind of worsening out there a little bit too, but I'm glad that your job is not being affected by that. That's such a different place, having been there a million times, between playing and going out there for like work-related stuff, from where you're from here, which I know you're a native of New York City, but are you Brooklyn or Staten Island?
I actually grew up in New Jersey.
Oh shit! Look at that. Okay.
So yeah, so I was originally from New Jersey, and then moved to New York for school. And then it was when I was doing Crucial Chaos, so that's when I met all the Brooklyn Indecision guys when they played the show. So.
Oh man, that's so funny. I didn't realize that because between Crucial Chaos, I knew you weren't from Long Island, even though that's the first time I saw you because of Millhouse, which we'll get into. But suddenly I don't feel so bad about being from Long Island, because I always like felt jealous of everybody, like, and you and I guess are the bridge and tunnel.
Yeah, I was just lucky I managed to avoid the Jersey accent, so people couldn't really tell where I was from.
Yeah, you don't have an accent at all. I've been told I don't have a Long Island accent, which part of me is bummed about that, because I love, as a musician, one of my favorite things when you go on tour and you could tell exactly where somebody's from as soon as they open their mouth.
True.
So before we get into, I want to go backwards and talk about like where you came from and how you came to discover music and playing guitar. But real quick, how did the pandemic, did it affect you in terms of like any shows or anything? So a bunch of my friends, the last show they saw was Indecision in Long Island. I don't know if you had anything else planned.
No, we didn't have anything else planned. So nothing, maybe we would have planned something if, shows were able to go on. And I guess I'm happy that we got like one show in this year. And I know like when I was on the East Coast for that show, I happened to just like not really see my family or anything, because I was like, oh, I'm going to see them in a few months, no big deal. And it's just like, man, why didn't I go see them?
Oh man, that's such a bummer.
Yeah, because I was only in town for maybe like 2.5 days. It was really, really quick.
Yeah, you do that often, I guess.
I was back then, to fly in to play shows, because I mean, at least it was, nice to have a chance to be able to fly in for something like that and play, see family, and then fly back here.
Right, knock them all in one stone.
Exactly.
And that, I was at the the show I'm referring to is Gorilla Biscuits, Indecision, and man, who else was on that bill? Do you remember?
Oh man, I have such a bad memory. I can picture the bands.
But don't worry about it. My point was, it's such a. I was at the other show because it was 2 days, and it was the one I went to was Killer Idols and Indecision. I'm sorry, Killer Idols and Gorilla Biscuits, and everybody that I know who went to that show, because of how close it was to the pandemic, we were all just like, man, like what a great experience to have, because who knows when we can all be in a situation like that again.
Yes, yeah, I wasn't even thinking though that was like, I don't know, I guess I was a little oblivious back then that like all this was actually could possibly happen. When we played I wasn't thinking like that, that was going to be it for a long time.
Right. Well, your bandmates who are watching are filling in the blanks for me. Apparently it was Mind Force and Constant Elevation. Shout out to Tom Sheehan and to Bago. Thank you for that.
Tom is my memory. Like I can't remember things. He fills in everything for me, because for some reason, like half my touring years have just disappeared from my brain.
Well, I will see how much you can remember from 20 plus years ago with some of the things I'm going to get into, because we're going to go backwards. I tell everybody this is like a public therapy session, depending on how you look at it. But what are your earliest memories of realizing that like music in general had some kind of effect on you before you even were into punk or playing in bands, where you're like, man, like this is part of me and this is something that means something to me?
Um, that's, I guess it probably, like, I always listened to music that, like, my sisters listened to and wanted to sort of, like, join in with them. So, I mean, I remember hearing a lot of, like, 80s stuff, and then I remember I really liked Michael Jackson um, and the Pointer Sisters I was a big fan of when I was young. And I remember the actual first album that I went to a store to buy was by Rockwell, because I liked that song, Somebody's Watching. I remember going into the one little record store in my town, and that was the first record that I actually like used my own money to buy.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I started playing piano when I was about 6 years old. So, like, my parents got me started in even playing music when I was really young. So, I don't think I realized the importance of it as much back then, because it was more like sort of being forced to play.
Okay. Okay.
It probably wasn't until I got into U2 that I realized like how much like music can sort of change things. So so like once I got into U2, then I feel like that's when everything sort of cascaded from there.
I can't wait to well, one of my bandmates and I have an ongoing argument about you too, and he's really into like heavy hardcore shit, and I know he loves Indecision, Most Precious Blood. I can't wait to tell him that you said that, because I'm like, dude, U2 was a good band. A lot of hardcore bands back in the day will tell you that they were an influence on.
Yeah, and especially the first three records, they were pretty sort of raw and not so much punk, more like new wave, I guess. It was, you know, it wasn't that commercial.
Right.
So I don't know, and that's basically how I learned how to play bass, was playing along to all those songs. So
That's a great band to like, you know, just thinking about something real basic like With or Without You, that bass line.
that was actually the first one I learned.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like that might as well be like a Ramones learning Ramones song, like just 4 chords, 3 chords, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah, there you go. Steve Bago,
Yep.
Unforgettable Fire is ridiculous.
But that was a little more polished than the other three. But I still really like that record too.
Yeah, very post-punk stuff going on. And so then from what came, because you learned how to play piano, which as a musician, everyone knows that there is a relation to all instruments. If you play piano, you'll notice the relation to bass and guitar. What did you learn how to play guitar first before you got into punk and hardcore, or what was the order of events there?
I think I got my sister's acoustic guitar first. Like, I was allowed to use that. So, and that was after I'd been playing piano for probably about 7 years. So, I think at that point I was allowed. My mom sent me to like her friend's son, who was giving guitar lessons, and I got a couple of guitar lessons from him, and then it was pretty soon after that I started listening to U2, and I really wanted to play bass. So I really just wanted to get a bass.
Okay.
So I used all my bat mitzvah money to buy a bass and a little PV amp. And so then once I had that, I pretty much, I think I took a couple bass lessons, maybe just for basics, but then it was mainly just playing along to songs. And I actually went to a guitar camp in Connecticut for 2 summers in a row for like a week. And then I was also in the jazz band in high school, playing bass. So that was helpful for learning like more scales and improvising, and so it's just like this gradual progression, I think. And once I got more out of U2, then when U2 was sort of like too easy,
Right.
I was like, I need something harder. Then I learned all of Appetite for Destruction.
Hell yeah.
And like, I love his bass lines. Like, he did so much cool shit on bass.
He does. They're one of my favorite bands.
So he was like, learning that album, like, I think heavily influenced my bass playing. And then I also learned like Led Zeppelin. I started figuring out a lot of Led Zeppelin songs, and
wow.
And so, you know, I think they were like, and some Jimi Hendrix. I used to play along to a lot of Jimi Hendrix stuff too.
This is great stuff to be playing along to. And I guess it's pretty cool to hear that you're partially trained, but also learning by ear, and
Yeah.
you know.
I
Yeah.
mean, I still have this book where I actually, like, for all the U2 songs, I actually transcribed them all onto, like, bass clef with, like, the tablature under them. So I used a lot of, like, my piano stuff and knowing how to read music and knowing all that stuff into bass and guitar. But I think pretty much when I started playing punk and hardcore, like, so much of that went out the window.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the irony of you talking about like Hendrix and Zeppelin and U2, and then like playing this like discordant music, you know.
Yeah.
So obviously we can now figure out that punk and hardcore came after the fact.
Yes.
Yeah, when and how did you come to find punk and hardcore music?
So my best friend in 8th grade, we were both U2 fans, and she played guitar because she liked the Edge, and I was playing bass because I liked Adam Clayton. And she moved to Cincinnati in, like, maybe it was the 8th or 9th grade, and I went to visit her, and she took me to see Sonic Youth in Cincinnati.
Oh
And she
shit!
also, yeah, and because she had found out about them from some friends out there, and then and she gave me this tape there that had like Nirvana, Soundgarden, like all these like old, grunge. It was made more grunge, obviously, but I loved it, and so I think from there, then I ended up becoming friends when I was trying to find like a band to play in. I ended up meeting the guitar player in this band IDK from New Jersey.
I remember that band.
Yeah, they were around in like the late 80s to early 90s, I think.
Yeah, I feel like
And longer. I mean, they played longer, but my one friend, the main friend I had in the band, that's when he was in the band. He played guitar, and and so he started bringing me to their shows. So then I got to see like Scatterbrain. I saw Ugly Kid Joe, like,
oh, wow.
like a lot of random bands. But then through them, I met this other guy who gave me this cassette that had like Born Against, Quicksand.
Wow.
I forget, God, I can't remember. I now have the tape still somewhere because I never throw anything out. And so that's sort of how I found out about hardcore and punk. Then was from that cassette. But the weird thing was that none of the bands were labeled on there, so I had no idea who was on that tape for like quite a while.
Cool. You're just like, this is, yeah, and you're hearing like Quicksand and Born Against, which sound nothing alike, but still.
Yeah, they were just on this tape,
Yeah.
and I was like, holy shit, what is this stuff? This is awesome.
That had to have been the early 90s, right? Or obviously.
Yeah, it was probably, yeah, maybe 90, 91, 91 probably.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. So it just started from that.
Okay. And so, well, but as far as like, did you discover it at the same time as going to see the shows as well through these people? Like, what shows were you going? And were they in Jersey or Manhattan, or what
I
was
started
going
going to shows in New York City. I didn't really go to any shows in New Jersey aside from those IDK shows. Otherwise, I would either like take the bus, or when I got my license, I would drive in, and like I remember I saw Sheer Terror and Fear at CBGB's, and my parents let me like drive to the city to CBGB's by myself when I was 18. So I thank them for that. But sometimes I'm like, I can't believe they let me do that.
Oh, same. I mean, like me and my friends, we were going to CB's when we were 14, and like, I just turned 40, so I'm just like, how? Like, I have friends with kids that are that age, and I'm like, there's no fucking way that any of these people would let their kids do that. That's insane to think about. So were you playing in bands before Crucial Chaos?
Yes. So I had a couple like bands that went nowhere that I actually like had found ads in like East Coast Rocker. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't think so.
So I don't know if it was mainly a Jersey thing, but it was like a little newspaper that you could get. I think it became the Aquarian maybe.
I remember the Aquarian.
Yeah, I think before that it was called the East Coast Rocker, and they had like classified ads in the back, like if you were looking for a band. And I didn't know how to find anyone else to play with, so I remember I put an ad in there, I think looking for a band, and then I answered like a couple things. So I just jammed random people for a while until there was two guys at my high school who then I became friends with, and we formed a band that was called Tapeworm. Okay. And then that band was like my first like real band sort of that we actually like, we played like Bond Street Cafe, we played CB's, we played like the Underworld, all like the God, I can't, like Nicky Camp type clubs back then. I can't remember the other guy right
Nicky
now.
Camp was the crusty dude on MTV.
No, there was a Nicky Camp before that.
Oh, yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, they found like a crusty
Yeah, I'm
crusty
trying
guy.
to think, but I'm blanking on the because my memory sucks. I'm blanking on the other guy's name. If Tom were on it, he would know. Tom Jack. That's what his name was.
What
So
was Tapeworm? Was that like a noisy? What kind of like punk hardcore stuff was that?
it was like sort of grungy, noisy. Like we didn't really know what we were doing. So it was just sort of like a discovery band where we're like, well, we like these bands right now, but then, you know, as we got into different stuff, like our taste changed a little bit, our sound changed. Because when the very first show we played was at our high school, and it was all pretty much just covers because we covered Nirvana, Pearl Jam.
Hell yeah.
And then like I remember our last song was just like noise, and we called it like Feedback Bloodbath or something.
Oh, we got some intel. It was Tom George? Was that
Tom
George? No, Tom Jack. Tom Jack.
Oh, Tom Jack. Yeah, see, that's what I did remember.
And then somebody's saying something about a show at the garage with there was a Madball record release show. Is that?
Oh yeah, we played. That was later on where we started getting better shows, and it was actually when I was playing in that band that I met Roger Murray from Agnostic Front,
Right.
like randomly at Wetlands, and he was so nice, and like we gave him a demo, and then he came to see us at ABC No Rio, and then put us on the Madball record release show for Set It Off, and we were like the first got to play like 15 minutes, but we didn't care. We were just like, holy shit.
That's Tapeworm.
Yes, this is all Tapeworm.
Yeah.
So we played, like eventually we did some cool stuff. We played a show with like Coalesce and not Coalesce, Bloodlet and 108 in Connecticut.
Yeah. Somebody's mentioning that right now. 108 with Tapeworm at the Tune In.
Yep. Thanks to Fernando Pinto, and we were on this compilation that he did also. So so it was cool. Like and they were like really good friends of mine in that band. So we went through a lot of drummers, but the singer Dave and the guitar player Jamie, who actually went on to play in Coercion and Seisha.
Oh shit! Hell yeah!
Yeah. So we went to like all the hardcore shows together, you know, in that time, like just discovering new bands. Except when we were all supposed to go see Pantera at Roseland, and then they sold their tickets, I think, to buy like tickets to Gorilla Biscuit's last show, and left me to go see Pantera by myself.
That's right. It was pretty awesome. Oh my god. So hold on a second. So then, okay, when and how does Crucial Chaos happen? I'm assuming you were a student there at NYU.
Yes. So so after I finished high school, I originally went to school for a semester at UC Berkeley. And I sort of hated the Bay Area back then. I just I didn't really want to go, ended up out there, and then ended up transferring to NYU. And I just think when I started, I was just like looking for something to do. And I found out that they had a radio station there. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. So I started doing Crucial Chaos on AM, on their AM radio, which basically went
AM? Damn.
Yeah. It wasn't much. But, and then there was like a whole big controversy that happened with Johnny Stiff at the time, who was doing it then with this other guy, Evan. And Johnny Stiff had to leave, and then they pushed me up into the FM slot to do Crucial Chaos, and I was like terrified. And I did that for three and a half years, I think.
You know, it's so funny because I listened to Crucial Chaos, and I wonder if it was you on air at that point. I would say that when I was listening, it was probably between 1995 and then the early 2000s.
I did the show from, it would have been 94 to about 97.
So I definitely did, and I was tuning in from Long Island, but it was in a town that was close to the city, so it was like back then when you're like listening to Static and you're like you can kind of hear punk music, and like, okay, that's awesome. And let's just give everybody, I think most people watching are probably already familiar, but this will end up on YouTube and on the St. Vitus Instagram afterwards. So you know, Crucial Chaos is this legendary station on NYU college radio Johnny Stiff, a legendary dude who drove everybody around from like
Yep.
Bad Brains to Youth of Today to like fucking, I think he even drove the Melvins around at one point. So you take over, and they also have bands that get to play. What are some highlights for you in those years of like interviews, bands that played, controversies, anything, any crazy stories you could tell us?
Well, I remember my first interview, actually like live interview having people up was Sick of It All. It was probably like the worst thing ever because I was so nervous. And I don't even remember what I asked them. I know it was terrible and I felt really bad. It was a bad interview. But I mean, that was fun. I remember when No Redeeming Social Value came up, and it was the filming of the New York hardcore documentary that was filmed around that time.
Classic.
There was like so many people in the room where the bands played. There was like footprints on the ceiling. There was like so much pot being smoked. I remember the security guard coming up, and like I was terrified I was going to get because I swear that security guard would like be up there all the time yelling at me for having too many people, or that he smelled pot, or that this, and I was just like, oh my God. I remember having to try and get Ralphie from Disassociate to not smoke in the room.
Wow.
Didn't go over very well.
It's so wild that that shit went down in a school.
Yeah. Oh, it totally was. And I think that was the problem, is that people would forget, like, this is a school building. Like, I understand you're playing and you want to be into it and everything, but this is still like a school building, and like you can't really smoke cigarettes and drink in here. But, you know, I tried to be as lenient as I could without, like, bands getting mad at me, without getting, like suspended from the radio station.
Yeah, like, who's listening to this live interview or, like, the live shows that's on campus? Like, isn't someone going to eventually pick up on the fact that there's some crazy shit going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, I mean, the other cool thing, too, was there was a goth show that Carlos from Interpol, the bass player.
Oh, yeah, Carlos D.
Yeah, so he would be on, I forget, I don't think he was on the same day as me, but I used to see him around there. And I was always like, I always wanted to talk to him, but I was always afraid. And then, but his like promo was like my favorite promo to play. So I used to always play promos for his show. But I mean, we had so many awesome bands play. Like VOD played, and like No Redeem. There's just, I mean, and that's basically from doing that show. Like, I wouldn't have met Indecision if I hadn't been doing that show. So, you know, and that pretty much did everything for me. So.
Well, yeah, but Millhouse was first, right?
Yes, but I actually didn't meet Millhouse until I was already like tagging along to like Indecision shows.
Okay, interesting. So you were friends with Indecision from there.
Yeah, and I've been before that. During part of the time on Crucial Chaos, I played bass in this band SFA.
Oh yeah, this band SFA. That's a legendary band. Yeah, with Brendan from CB's. Yeah.
So I had an interest. You know, that wasn't the best time for me, but definitely was a learning experience. And I see Dave is telling me we had Murphy's Law and H2O also played. We had pretty much most of the New York bands played the show.
Skipping the details, Rachel. This is important stuff.
I'm really bad with details.
That's amazing. I can only imagine. My band played Crucial Chaos on the Might of Princes, who we did play a couple shows with Most Precious Blood and Indecision. Yeah. And that was when Steve from Off Minor, I think he was. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun place to go to.
Yeah, he was the engineer, right, at the time.
I think he was the engineer at the time, and we recorded a live set there that was eventually released. And I remember even back then it was pretty wild, like drinking and doing shit in there. Yeah. I had a funny moment, just to go off track for a second, because you said you were scared or intimidated a little bit by Carlos D. I loved that early Interpol stuff, and I remember being around the NYU area at the point that it was a place called Fat Baby in the Lower East Side, pulling up, blasting Interpol, and you would run into people, and I remember seeing him and making eye contact and being like mortified, and then pretending that's not where I was going to stop, and I just kept going.
Good way to cover it.
Yeah, totally. So the Millhouse is the first time I saw you play, and it was in at the PWAC Long Island,
Mhm.
legendary venue. I don't remember who played, but I think it was in the back room. I think it might have been with Green Sleep.
Okay. We played, I mean, I remember we played the PWAC a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I met Artie through Indecision because he was in the process of getting them on Exit Records. And then at the time I wasn't playing like I had left SFA and I wasn't playing bass for anyone, and then they happened to have their bass player and guitar player left. So I joined at that time. Actually, I think maybe it was a time for a new drummer too. So I think there was three of us all sort of joining Millhouse at the same time. So it was me, Greg, and then Justin Skirty.
Yeah, shout out. He's watching right now too. Shout out to Justin.
Hey, Justin. So yeah, so we all joined around the same time, and and that was after the first EP was released, and I mean, and that was, that was a fun band to play, and Artie was, Artie's
Oh, he's
Artie.
the best stage.
Basically.
We have some of the best stage bands are from like around here, right? Like, I don't know who's the best, but you have Paul Bearer from Sheer Terror is up there.
Yes.
And some people that people probably they go unnoticed because they weren't in those legendary bands like Sick of It All and AF and whatever. Tommy Corrigan from Silent Majority and Artie Philly from Millhouse, some of the best stage bands are.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was always fun, like just waiting to see what Artie was gonna say. And as far as like playing, like Millhouse songs were just like Brian's playing style was like nothing I had ever like played with before. So it was definitely fun and a challenge to try and like play along in all these crazy time signatures that I didn't know like what was going on. But I could also be like really creative on the bass, and that was, I think, probably one of the better times where I could really take, like, I felt like all the stuff that I used to practice in high school and sort of with all those bands and sort of incorporate it into what I was playing and writing for this band, like as far as lines and stuff.
It's that's a weird band, and it was a great band. Like, I still listen to those Millhouse records. I had somebody because it's not on streaming. I had a friend of mine send me the MP3 zip files of Obscenity in the Milk and the other 7 inches and EPs. Which ones did you play on?
I played on Obscenity in the Milk and some like cover compilations. Not cover. I think that was it though. I remember we did Firestorm for like a Simpsons compilation.
Okay.
And I think we were on like a couple other things, but I think I don't know if there was anything else after Obscenity in the Milk.
No, I think that was your guys' last one, but I remember there was stuff before that.
Yeah, I wasn't on, I just didn't play on the first EP. That was Laura.
Okay. And that's you and Brian Meehan and Greg from Radio 4 and Justin Brannon and Artie. That's the lineup.
Yes, for Obscenity in the Milk, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, what a fucking record. It's up there for me and a lot of people I know with like Dead Guy or Rorschach. That record is up there.
It was fun. It was fun to record too because we got to work with Ian Love and Davide from Orange 9, and he on that record, like as far as recording bass, like I learned so much from him recording that record with bass as far as like my bass sound and just like playing in general. Like he was awesome, and like I'd never been worked that hard as far as my bass lines before. Like
how cool is that? Yeah, you got Ian Love from Rivals, who was eventually in Rival Schools. Yeah, that's rad. And so with Millhouse, then you ended up in Indecision. Like, when and how? Because I saw Indecision. I remember getting the demos and I saw them before you were in the band. You joined up just in time to be on Most Precious Blood, the album. Yes. Talk about that. How you ended up in the band and how that all came together.
Well, after I met them at the radio show, Justin and we started going out shortly after. So I was always tagging along with them to shows, and I would sell merch for them. And I think I started bugging Justin pretty quick, like, I want to play guitar in Indecision.
Oh, okay.
But obviously the rest of the band was like, oh, like no. And I played one show in Florida with them on the first tour that we did was Shut Down, and that was Shut Down in Indecision. And we ended up playing some show at, I think it was at the Refuge, and there was like 8 people there. And I knew all their songs already. And I was like, can I just play the show with you guys? So I borrowed Steve from Shutdown Setup. And I played the set with them. And I think afterwards, the guys in the band were like, we're not going to do that again, right?
Wow.
It's okay. I mean, I totally get it. But I think then the more, I was in Tampa. Okay, I was close. So so then I think it was probably maybe 2 years after that. I think I had finished, I graduated college, and they had just done a tour with Silent Majority. And I think Justin talked to them again and was like, Rachel really wants to join. I think we should really have a second guitar player so that I can have help writing and all this stuff, even though Justin did not want anyone to help him to write. That became apparent very quickly.
He wrote the lyrics too, right?
Got me a band, so.
That's amazing. Well, yeah, he wrote the lyrics as well, right?
Him and Tom both did. Justin wrote some that Tom would like sort of mess with and arrange, and Tom wrote some songs too. And then, but Justin did like the majority of the writing the guitar parts, and I just would try and like chime in on second guitar parts. And when I could get like a song, I'd be like, hey, like I got a song. Can I try and write something?
I mean, your guitar playing and his guitar playing complement each other very well. It's like Indecision is one of those bands which I think we all realized later on when there were member changes. I personally, I loved the Artie stuff. I love both versions of the band, but when I'm talking about member changes, I'm talking about later on with Most Precious Blood. That core lineup of Indecision, it's like one of those bands when you switch somebody, that's in a core member, it's not the same. Some of the best bands are like that, where you can't really replace anybody, and you guys really worked well together.
Well, I mean, we sort of noticed that with Indecision when, by the time Bago, our bass player, left, and then already being without Tom, and then it just was like the energy was not the same anymore, and we could tell it wasn't really like working out that well.
Yeah.
So
well,
yeah.
We won't get too into the drama stuff, and there's a documentary. There's a documentary there for everybody to watch. What's it called again? It's
What It Once Meant. Sorry.
What it was. It's a documentary about you.
I know. I should have studied before this.
So talk about you end up in the band, and then you record Most Precious Blood, the album. Which I just have to always mention this because I actually know this guy also, but it blows my mind when I think about how Bumblefoot produced those records, who was in Guns N' Roses.
Yep.
For quite a while. Yeah, you want to share some memories about making that album?
And well, he did Unorthodox, he did Most Precious Blood, he did To Live and Die.
Yeah.
And he also did Nothing in Vain. So he just was so comfortable to work with. Like, he was laid back, but and he would give us enough guidance that like he was very helpful, but at the same time he wouldn't try and manage what we did or anything. And we just always had so much fun hanging out with him. And a couple times that he would play guitar for us or something, we'd be like, oh, like
I know, right? What a wizard.
Yeah. So, and actually Wage of Sin also recorded with him too. So
when did that fit into all of this?
Wait, hold on, my dog is crying to get out of here. There you go. So when I think it was around 2000, maybe it was 2001, I think I just was like musically a little frustrated because as much as I love playing in bands with Justin, it could be difficult for me like creatively to like have that much of a say. So I just wanted a chance to like play with some and hang out with some other girls who were like into the same thing if I could find any, and have a chance to just write without somebody else sort of always there to like,
of course, yeah,
or I don't like that, or
I thought that was rad. And that band lasted how long?
We were around for 3 or 4 years, I think, maybe.
how many releases did you all have under your belt?
We had an EP, then we had a full length, and I think maybe we had a couple, maybe a split.
Okay. Yeah, I remembered that band, but it had been so long and it had been brought to my attention by a few folks because it didn't end up on the flyer, so I apologize to.
That's okay.
Yeah, but yeah, you were always doing a lot, and then Most Precious Blood, when that happened, was super busy. Like I told you, by the way, this thing fucking flies by. We have 20 minutes left, and I'm gonna try to fly by this stuff because we did not talk about. I'm gonna briefly just mention. Obviously there was a second version of Indecision with Artie on vocals.
Yes.
I know a lot of people that love that version as well. Both versions were great. Release the Cure I still listen to that just as much as I listen to Unorthodox and Most Precious Blood. You recorded with Roger Moret. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about what that was like working with him and making that record?
Well, I mean, I wish we could have worked with him, like done more with him, but he was doing our record, and at the same time there was another band at Big Blue Meanie, and he was working with them also, and so I think the other band was in sort of worse shape as to where they were on like recording, and we just sort of had everything together and we're like ready to go. So I think, he would pop in and like, give little things here and there. Stuff, but he was stuck a lot of time with the other bands.
Okay.
He had more of his full attention for it, but having him do vocals on it and just having his input on it, aside from him telling me that my voice wasn't tough enough, but I forgave him. But that's my only regret and all that, is that he was with this other band at the same time as doing our record. But that record was a lot of fun, and we'd never had like that much time in the studio and that like insane of a setup to like record on and access to all these crazy amps and guitars and all this stuff. So
yeah, well, if you want, you can answer this question real quick.
Are we going to everything, all the dog collars we do are licensed, so we'd have to, maybe at some point we could approach Rancid or Social Distortion for licensing.
There you go. Yeah, and we'll get into that in a sec. Right around this time of Indecision, I remember seeing some really big tours. I don't know if it was the same tour or if it was separate, but remember Sick of It All, Hot Water Music at one point, the Misfits, or was that all one tour?
Well, no, their Indecision tour was Sick of It All, Hot Water Music, and AFI.
That's right. That's the one.
That was one of the most amazing tours I ever got to do.
Unreal.
So 2 months in the U.S. And that was awesome. So that was one tour. And then we did I think it was like a West Coast tour with the Misfits, where we played shows out with Turmoil. Then we left them on the West Coast, played like a week of shows with the Misfits when it was still Michael Graves.
Graves, right.
Yeah. And I know he's quite the controversial person right now, but at the time, I will say, I do really love those Misfits albums that he sent.
I do too. I don't care what anyone says.
Really catchy, and so that was a lot of fun to do, and then we joined back up with Turmoil to play on the way back.
So rad. I love that, like, Indecision fit in so many different circles. Now, like, as the band's starting to get big, because eventually you end up in doing Most Precious Blood, which is basically, extension of Indecision. Tom comes back. At any point, is anybody like, yo, we should try to do this like as a career, or is that never really the thought in mind?
Well, I mean, with Indecision, like we were touring most of the time, and it was basically when we were home because we didn't really make any money on tour. Really, it was like I think me, Justin, and Artie would get like rent money because we were the ones that couldn't live at home, so we had to pay rent, and then that was pretty much all we had. So we'd have to get home and work. We all worked different like temp jobs. Like I worked a bunch on like in the Wall Street area as like a secretary and stuff.
Yeah.
A friend of the band, his sister worked at a temp agency, so she would all find us jobs when we would need them when we'd be home. With Most Precious Blood, I think that was the first time where I could sort of play a tour and then come home and at least have like my rent money better. I mean, I still, I worked printing T-shirts at this company called TDT for a lot of a good chunk of the time I was in Most Precious Blood. And that was great because he was awesome. It was Jeff from TDT. He would let me like print the Indecision shirts there.
Oh, wow.
Most Precious Blood shirts. So I would like work like 8 hours doing like the usual stuff, and then he would just let me stay late. And I worked like another 8 hours printing all like the shirts for tour and everything. And sometimes someone would come help me, and then other times my bandmates would not come and help me.
Was that Most Precious Blood after Tom left, and then you brought in Rob from One King Down, started to like kind of get on these big festivals and tours, and you were on Trustkill? Like, was it? I know this is kind of redundant. It's like I kind of asked this question already, but at that point, was it sort of a thing where you were trying to, you know, all these bands around us were getting full time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we were sort of like at that point when we would be home. I think once I stopped working at TDT, I don't think I had like a regular job for a little while, but it's only because we were gone so much,
right,
that I like there was just no time really to do anything. Oh, hi, Justin.
There's Justin.
My favorite. That's awesome. So yeah, so I think I don't know that we were like, oh yeah, like we want to get huge and do this full time or whatever. We were just doing what we can and just riding whatever momentum we had at the time to just, you know, do tour as much as we could and play with, you know, as many bands as we could and
right
stuff. And because I mean, in the end, I never wanted music to be like forever, like my full-time career. Like I
for
knew
sure
that could happen.
Yeah. And some people are like kind of doing their art. Some people are aspiring for like a profession. And some people are just living in the now, and that's
sort of how it was for me. I was like, well, you know what? I won't have a chance to do, like, if I have these opportunities now, I'm just going to take them. Because, I mean, I dropped out of medical school to keep touring. Yeah. So it was like, you know, I was like, well, do I stay in here or do I take these chances that we have now where I know if I really want to be a doctor, I can get back into medical school and go back. But these chances to tour, to go to Australia and go to Europe again and South Africa and all these places that I got to go after I dropped out, like I knew those wouldn't be there.
That's so wild. And that's what you got. Those are some places you got to go with Most Precious Blood, other countries like that.
Yeah, and I don't regret any of it. I mean, some people would say that's crazy to do that, but, you know, like some people wait their whole lives to travel and say, oh, when I'm older and retired, I'm going to travel. But I had a chance to do it when I was young.
Yeah.
And to do it and have a lot of fun for the most
Absolutely.
part.
Absolutely. I'm in the same boat as you. I mean,
yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't regret any of it. And you, one thing we both share in common is we're both doing something that we're passionate about for a living. And then you get to have fun and play music still, yeah. You know, so that's a good life right there. Now, I know I said we'll avoid all the drama. We're almost over, but I was wondering, because I don't know the answer to this. Like, why did Most Precious Blood break up?
I think so. We did a tour in Australia, and I think at that point we were being booked by Matt Pike, and Matt Pike called us and said, like, I can't do anything more for you guys. Basically, like I think we turned down a tour that he had found for us because we were just like, like it's not sort of what we want to do. And I think that he just, I don't know what made him exactly get so fed up with us. But sort of when that happened, we were like, oh, that sucks. And I think when we were in that doing that last tour in Australia in 2006, I think all of us were just feeling pretty burnt out and realized like we need a break because we'd been touring like so much up until that point.
Yeah.
And I just think we all just needed a break, and we figured when that happened, you know what, like this is a good time for all of us to just like stop, let's go home, and we'll all go back to our regular lives and regroup and see, you know, what we want to do. But then at the same time, that's when everything happened with Trustkill being
Folded, right?
Sony or whatever, how it became bullet. I don't remember even what happened exactly with the whole bullet tooth thing. So then that completely delayed the record that we were writing, and that ended up being dragged on forever. And it just sort of like a lot of things were just saying, like, I think it's time maybe to just stop. And we went to Russia and did like a couple shows in Europe, I think in 2009 it was maybe. And I think then after that, that was pretty much it. I mean, we never formally broke up.
Got it. Yeah.
You know, just because we're like, we don't need to break up and then, you know, have reunion shows or whatever, because, you know, Indecision was already doing that at the time.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were just like, like, we'll just, you know, we're still together, but yeah, we're just not playing any shows.
No, it's good to clarify that. I mean,
that's, you know, that was 11 years ago, so I don't really know where we stand right now, but.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, Most Precious Blood did a really great Nothing in Vain reunion set at St. Vitus.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, actually, Most Precious Blood with Rob, we played This Is Hardcore.
Oh yeah, I saw a video.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 4 or 5. No, it had to have been probably like 7 years ago, because I've been in California now for 5 years. So right. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
And that was only the material that he sang on that you did? Is that how it went? For the Rob reunion?
Yeah, that was just like a usual Most Precious Blood set, like what we would have been doing, like, which was still had Nothing in Vain stuff. But then the show that we played with Tom, I think that was mainly just Nothing in Vain.
Yeah, right, of course.
Yeah.
Now, so Indecision, you've been doing reunions for years, and like they're no, I mean, hey.
No, I know it's sad, and we have not come out with a single new thing.
Well, that's where I'm going with this question, because like the reunions, that's normal. We all know that. I mean, look at Cro-Mags and all the other bands that are doing that. You know, but and the cool thing is you know, what I was saying earlier in my intro, it's like the message of Indecision and the sound is not dated. It's still, everything about the band is still relevant. You know, when you listen to certain bands, I'm not going to name any, but like, you're like, oh, this is so 90s or this is so 80s. And, you know, there are bands today that are writing music that sounds like that are brand new. So it's like, it's pretty awesome. And the shows, the energy, it's still there and people are still going off. Do you see the band doing new material at some point? I feel like
we've tried multiple times, but and we wrote one new song that I think we played it somewhere. I think I'd never practiced it with the band, and I just sort of, I don't even know what I played, but I played something. But like, I mean, and Pat, our drummer, is always like, let's write new stuff. Obviously, it's hard. I mean, well, actually, it's a lot easier to do now. It doesn't matter really where you are. But for them to do new stuff, really, I would leave it up to like Justin and Pat. Like they're sort of like the core music people, or like if they write something, then obviously it'd be easy for me to do like my little part on it. But you know, I don't think it would sound like Indecision if I all of a sudden came up with a song now.
Sure, yeah, and Justin,
I think it needs to be those two.
Yeah, Justin's obviously very busy as a councilman.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Justin's a little busy, and Pat's really busy too, because he's like a high up in the fire department as a EMT captain, chief, something. I don't know.
Wow.
High up though, and he has like crazy hours, and but I know Pat would do it like in a second. So it's really just getting Justin to commit.
Yeah, right. No, that's it. Yeah. And I just realized I was at the show that you guys did that, and because Tom just posted that it was at Vitus. I remember you guys doing that.
All right.
Well, Bago's saying put the pressure on.
Yep.
To get to, so there you go.
I mean, everybody would want to do it, but okay. So Pat's a deputy chief. There we go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So yeah, but like they really need to do it. Like Pat's like saying, "Oh, I can write something." I'm like, "Sure, I can write something," but then I feel like it's not necessarily going to sound like Indecision. So it's better for those two that they need to just meet up and do it. And there you go.
Are you doing what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes before we leave the more stuff about the company you're doing? But are you doing any other music that we don't know about right now, or that I'm missing? No. Okay.
Honestly, like. I mean, it's sort of sad where like music was such a huge part of my life for so many years that eventually I wanted to do other stuff. And now like I love the fact that we can play like an Indecision show here and there, so it's fun to still play live. But at the same time, you know, like we played that show in February. I haven't picked up a guitar since then. And honestly, I think before that show, I probably didn't even really practice for that show. And I probably hadn't picked up a guitar since the previous show we had played like the past year. So, I mean, the one nice thing with Indecision is that I can pretty much, with that band, like muscle memory just takes over, and it's just like those songs, like, I mean, obviously they're not very difficult, but it just like, they just come right back to me.
I mean,
like from a Precious Blood, I had to go back and be like, oh, I gotta like, I don't remember this stuff, so I have to go back and practice again. But with Indecision, like, it's just sort of where it's at. And some people find it crazy that I'm just like, I don't really want to play anymore, but I don't have it in me anymore. But at the same time, one of my nieces, she started playing guitar, so it's awesome where she'll send me like little parts that she wrote, and she posts like stuff of her playing acoustic guitar and singing on TikTok and stuff. So so it's cool to see like at least that she sort of picked up on it, sort of around the same age that I did, even though I gave her an electric guitar and an amp. I'm like, try this. I'm like, why don't you try listening to this? But you know, she likes her own stuff, so
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you have such a great discography. So and I know so many people that still listen to it and celebrate it. Obviously, you see people still going off. So you know, we'll always have that. So talk about Caninus. Am I saying that right? Why can't I say it?
Think of canine.
Caninus.
Canine, and then just add the US. Caninus.
Caninus. Gotcha. Okay. Let everybody know. You know, it's custom dog collars. You're doing some cool band merch. Talk about it and let everyone know where they can buy the stuff from you.
So I started making collars back probably in like 2009, just because like I wanted cool collars for my own dogs, and I just had like a little Etsy store, and I used to just sell like a few a month. And then I used to make a lot for like the shelter I worked with. Like I would try and make nice collars for some of the dogs that would have been there for a long time, just to make them stand out a little more and stuff. And then it was probably about 4 years ago, my boyfriend Derek asked if he could like sort of get involved, and he suggested, why don't we approach some bands about doing band dog collars? And I was like, I don't know how that's gonna go, but fine. So we tried it out with like Indecision first and made a couple like Indecision collars, and then to see how like that would do. And it was, you know, we sold a few. And then after that, then we approached Madball, and Madball was sort of like the first bigger band that we did. So from there, we also did Sick of It All, Terror. And then we got the Misfits, which was, you know, that was pretty cool.
Unbelievable.
And then we kept going from there, got Judas Priest, and then we just did Motorhead, Slayer, and Motley Crue. And
Holy shit.
I have some samples here.
Yeah.
So we have a Motorhead collar.
Oh, fuck yeah. That's badass.
Got that. Slayer, we got Terror.
People probably buy the hell out of those.
Yeah, and here's a Motley Crue one.
That's insane, because I know from working in the business how hard that is to get the licensing for all that kind of stuff.
Because it was something new that people were like, like, okay. And I think once we got the Misfits, then it gave us a better track record to start approaching other bigger bands. So then once we had Judas Priest, then at least that company sort of knew who we were. So then we could sort of, you know, have like more, you know, had a little bit of a reputation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are powerful names. The Instagram's going to kick us off in a second.
Okay.
But drop the social real quick so we can.
It's Caninus _collars.
Okay.
And our website is caninuscollars.com, and everything's up there. And I have one friend who helps me sew, but other than that, like, I put everything together here. Like it's basically like 2.5 people that do everything. And so it's been interesting.
I love that. Everybody support right now because, obviously independent businesses we should be supporting, and this is some cool shit that I'm sure.
Great Christmas gifts for your dogs.
Yes. Look at
Chili.
What's your dog's name?
This is Chili. We adopted him about a year ago.
Chili, I'm so sorry that we didn't ask you any questions and that we didn't ask you for your name until the end of the show.
He just likes to hang out.
Well, I want to thank you so much. I want to be able to say goodbye before we get kicked off.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Anybody that watched, you can watch the whole thing. If you missed anything, in about 2 minutes on the Instagram, it'll be up there, and on my YouTube channel. So, and support Rachel, Caninus.
Caninusscholars.com.
That's right. That's right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.